More details are coming out of the Panthers hosting an outdoor game.
You're Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into this Wednesday, January 1st edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. I'm Armando Velez from the Hockey News. You can follow me on X at MondoMan12. Follow the show account on X and Instagram at LO_FLA Panthers. You could also follow the show account on Blue Sky at LOFLA Panthers. And shout out to the everydayers once again for coming back here and getting your daily Florida Panthers fix. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet and get started with $250 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. So, Florida Panther fans, Happy New Year to all of you. And hopefully, once again, we have the Florida Panthers hopefully replicate the championship success that we experienced in 2024. And it's a new year and new opportunities coming up for the Florida Panthers. But it is a Wednesday, which means it is a Winans Wednesday edition of the show. We have so much to discuss coming into the new year with everything that has happened in the last 24 hours on the news cycle, and also preparing us for another year in 2025 for Florida Panthers hockey in a chance to repeat as Stanley Cup champions. And Jacob, welcome back to the show and Happy New Year, my friend.
Happy New Year, and thanks for having me on. I think as far as our recordings go, this is probably the most relaxed one we're going to have for a while, and enjoying the holiday, and excited to get going.
Yeah, a late afternoon recording here to start the new year. No game to do a post game to for us, and we're just enjoying our time watching some college football on a Wednesday here. No World Juniors today for that. So yeah, going into this, it's once again an opportunity to just talk about our favorite thing, Florida Panthers hockey. So the Winter Classic for the NHL happened yesterday at Wrigley Field, where the Blues and Blackhawks met, which crazy, awesome story for around the game where Cam Fowler got his two goals actually in his 1000th NHL game, going 9 games after that trade with Anaheim and St. Louis. But also there's also another storyline for there where Connor Bedard was asked about the crowd coming there to support them, and also was very empathetic to fans who pay a lot of money to go see the product there on a game that wasn't even close for that. But really, once again, a cool watching it from TV. But I'm going to relate this to what we're about to talk about, just the entire community going around together, the pre-post game and everything. This really gets me excited with everything that we've been anticipating for the Panthers and their opportunity to host an outdoor game, which we have spoken about in the reports of them leading to getting to that.
Yeah, it's the Winter Classic is always awesome. So much tradition, so much history, and we've seen some for lack of a better word, we have seen some classics in that game. The Blues Blackhawks game, not necessarily one of those, but still always fun to see the outdoor hockey and rivalry game there. I thought Bedard's comments were really candid, and you don't see that kind of like transparency and honesty from players too often. It wasn't a generic answer. He really felt for the fans who were disappointed in how they played. So I thought that was cool. Pretty cool day for hockey. But as Panther fans, we were very just kind of on pins and needles and listening to every word that Gary Bettman had to say about the future of the Winter Classic. And when he drops that quote of people think we've lost our minds, it's going to be something totally different. Everyone is like, oh, we know what that means. So that was exciting yesterday. And then just the confirmation that the Panthers are going to get an outdoor game next year. really, really excited. It's a really huge opportunity for the organization. They've accomplished everything there is to accomplish in the last few years: President's trophies, Eastern Conference titles, Atlantic Division champions, Stanley Cup champions, hosted an All-Star game. They've kind of checked every box except the outdoor game. So hosting an outdoor game is going to be a really, really huge showcase for the franchise and for the hockey community down here, which has grown exponentially, and now it's going to get the chance to show out on a huge stage, and everyone's going to get to see that Panthers hockey is legit around here.
Yeah, and I'm just trying to picture everything based on what we saw yesterday with how Chicago and St. Louis came to the ice with the Gretzky's basement for the St. Louis Blues on their side of things, and then the Chicago Blackhawks actually taking the subway to the game at Wrigley Field, and then trying to picture the coaching staffs of the Panthers and their possible opponent for the Winter Classic, which we think it's going to be a Winter Classic, which hopefully we get to see Paul Maurice wearing the starter's jacket with just the Florida Panthers logo, which once again we think it's going to be the modern not the modern logo, the retro logo for them. That's what we believe that's going to happen. And Gary Bettman dropping it but not confirming, saying that it's going to come official next week. But here's what we do know about the outdoor game is that it's likely not going to be Battle of Florida. George Richards of Florida Hockey Now discussed in his story about that the word is from the Tampa organization that they're going to get an outdoor game of their own, which first thought was, okay, if the Panthers are getting one here on this date, and then later in the day, you're risking a little bit with it getting warmer in February and March. But at the same time, with what goes on in Raymond James Stadium with hosting an NFL team, bowl games, and you never know how far the Buccaneers could go into the playoffs. They've been hosting a home playoff game the last few years, every single year, even going back to Tom Brady recently. That's carried over. So it makes sense for the Panthers, if they were to separate the two and them to host it in the same year, that New Year's Eve, New Year's Day for the Panthers makes ultimate sense for the Panthers in doing this outdoor game. So it looks like it's going to be the Rangers for the Panthers, and then if the Tampa Bay Lightning hosts an outdoor game, it's likely going to be the Bruins. So they're going to get one of those northern teams down here for it, and it helps for the NHL for their bottom line, the northern fans traveling down who come for the warmer weather here. So that we're starting to put two and two together. It's all about confirmation at this point from the actual league office.
Yeah, and the Panthers Rangers outdoor game down here makes a ton of sense when you think about profitability of that game, because it's kind of low hanging fruit. The Panthers and the Rangers play this time of year every year. The Panthers always host the Rangers right after Christmas during the holiday stretch between Christmas and New Year's. That's really an every year thing. So just doing that same trip for the Rangers and having it be the outdoor game instead seems like easy money. It makes the most sense. You're going to get a packed building. You're going to have the diehard Panthers fans. You're going to have the vacationing Rangers fans. You're going to have a pretty rowdy crowd that's going to be not evenly split necessarily, but should have a pretty good, pretty sizable chunk of Rangers fans in the building to make it interesting. And the Winter Classic is typically a game where you don't want it to just be a one-sided fan base. The NHL tends to choose locations where you're going to have a big draw from both fan bases, and you can afford to do that when you have a large stadium. It's not just an overrunning of Rangers fans taking over the Panthers building, for example. So I'm excited for it. If it is the Rangers, which is what it looks like, I think that's going to be a great matchup. It's becoming a little bit of a rivalry that the Panthers have kind of dominated lately, but the Rangers are by no means expected to be a bottom dweller or enter rebuild or anything like that. They're having a down season right now, but it's a team that has been really good in recent years and gave the Panthers a strong run for their money last year in the playoffs. So next year, that should be a really good matchup. I'm excited for it. And like you said, I'm also super excited for the pregame, the pregame things, the public skates, the practices. outdoors that tend to take place with these. There's a lot that could be really fun about this. So I don't know, maybe the Panthers will take the Brightline into practice one day, or hop on the Metro Mover downtown and hang out at Brickell or something. We'll see, but should be fun.
Or take a walk from Domino Park, something like that. But even though it's an old boys club over there, make an exception for the Florida Panthers players to at least play some for them there. So that'll be a nice fitting way of getting the Panthers possibly to Lone Depot Park.
And turn in the smelling salts for the day, and just have Cuban coffee shots on the bench for everybody. I think that might be the way to go.
Oh, that'll wake them up. And gotta wonder if they're going to be wearing the eye block, depending on if the roof is open or not, depending on the weather. So that's also going to be something there. And we saw a good amount of Blues fans at Wrigley Field even yesterday. So that is gonna the NHL. I don't think they will struggle with filling that ballpark. I just looked it up right now. 36,000 that Lone Depot Park fits. So you have your typical 19,000 in Amerant Bank Arena. You add more to that with an already growing fan base, and with season tickets being sold out for the Panthers, you're going to get a good amount from both fan bases here for sure.
And realistically, the price point to get in the building for this should be considerably lower than what you'd expect in an original six city, or like the Wrigley Field, or we've seen Pittsburgh, we've seen the games up north in New York. It should be a little bit more accessible to the average fan to go to see one of these to go see an outdoor game where typically they wouldn't really have that chance. So I'm really excited for how that could help grow the game, especially with it being located in Miami. That's a market that the Panthers started in there in downtown Miami, and it'll be really cool to see them play a game back in their original roots.
Yeah, for sure. Just 2 miles away from the original arena that they played. But we're going to transition over to segment number 2, where we're going to discuss it being a new year for the Florida Panthers. We're going to discuss our personal New Year's resolutions as we have taken in Florida Panthers hockey, and going forward, taking in the sport, and also which Panthers could use a resolution. We'll discuss that and more next here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel, and the NFL playoffs are almost here. It's not too late to get in on the regular season action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. FanDuel has meant so many ways to pick up a W. I love betting on which players will score a touchdown and how many points each team will score. It's thrilling. So just visit FanDuel.com to join today, and that's FanDuel.com for your chance to win $250 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. And thank you guys once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day here on a Wednesday, a Winans Wednesday edition of the show. Late afternoon recording here. And once again, Happy New Year to everybody out there. And Jacob, I want to discuss some of our New Year's resolutions as two guys who watch the Florida Panthers. And honestly, one of my personal resolutions when it comes to just overall my viewing experience as a Panther fan, and also someone who comes here on the microphone 5 days a week to talk about everything for the Panthers, is my resolution is to not brush off losses against for the Panthers whenever they face off against a team that they haven't played against in the postseason, and just not be so complacent. Yeah, 10-1-0 is nice against teams that they face, but the complacency factor is one place that I don't want to be, because there are teams that are on the rise. New Jersey, even though it was a down year last year. Washington, who played so well without Alex Ovechkin, and now he's back. He scored 2 goals in the first 2 games. So that is a place that I want to be in 2025. And it's, these these are the dog days of the season. Basically, they're basically here for the Panthers and just trying to get ready for April. But that's how, as a hockey fan, that's my resolution. How about yourself?
Yeah, mine is my resolution, just as a hockey fan and as a fan of the Panthers, really is and just kind of religiously watching this team. It's a little bit more trust and a little bit more belief in the Panthers' ability to bounce back. I feel like they've earned it,
Yes.
and I feel like we tend to get a little bit up in arms when they're going through a tough stretch, or when they've had a couple stretches or a couple instances this year where they've gotten shut out back-to-back games, for
Yes.
example, or the scoring goes dry, or their defense isn't tight and they give up some odd man rushes, or the goaltending is a little bit spotty. They've played a ton of hockey in the last couple of years. And to your point, I don't want to get to a place of complacency where bad losses are acceptable, or we let that, or things just turn into a long skid of bad habits, and everyone's just like, oh, it's okay, they won the Stanley Cup last year, just let it go. That's a dangerous place to be, and that's where you end up with the Stanley Cup hangover.
Yep.
So where I want to approach that is just have a little bit more faith in the players and the coaching staff to know that they're not going to allow bad habits to take over, and know that they're going to find their game when things are not looking good. They've earned that trust in how they've bounced back over the past couple of years when they've hit some bad stretches. And I think back to last year before the playoffs, when they were just playing horrible hockey for a couple of weeks, and everyone is like, oh my God, what's happening to the Panthers? They look like they're going to be a first round exit. And we come to find out that the whole team was sick with a stomach virus, and they were playing terribly because the whole locker room was under the weather for a long period of time. And we don't always know what's going on in there. So just a little bit of trust and faith in the team, the coaching staff, the decision makers, that they're going to right the ship if things don't look perfect, and that this team will be ready by April.
Yeah, and then you think about at the end of their Western Canadian trip, Barkov's out one game, and then Sam Bennett makes an ultimate sacrifice playing in a game while ill, and then alternating that with his turn being on the not playing, and then Barkov coming back. So that's ultimate selflessness for the team. So also I want to appreciate the Panthers' selflessness all throughout this for them, and just that one game that someone will need to pick someone else up for them. And that's what I'm hoping for the Panthers, and that for them to continue, and also to just not get too comfortable in losses, more importantly. But players who might not need a resolution for the Panthers, let's discuss more about that, because we're hoping for another playoff run, 110 million in economic impact over the last few years. So an extended playoff run would definitely help with more of the stuff off the ice that the Panthers ownership is working on currently. But Carter Verhaeghe, 8 out of the last 10 games, he's had goose eggs for them, and we've seen him now on the third line, although that line scored on in their last game against the Rangers. So that is one player that I'm looking for the Panthers to possibly hit a bounce back. Right now, he's at a goal pace of 19, and he's been in the 30s the last few. So he is definitely one for that is due come 2025. I don't have any of the goalies, actually, Jacob. Sergei Bobrovsky, 5 of his last 8 starts, he's had a 910 save percentage or better. So, and the league average save percentage is 900. He's just over that after he's just under, after a pretty rough start to his season. So, and Spencer Knight, I'm just looking for bounce back, even though he hasn't had too many duds in a row. He's had a dud and then responded. Some fans might not like that, but I'm pretty okay with where Spencer is at. How about you?
Yeah, I've got a couple. I'm going to kind of just go by position group and coaching staff here. So goaltending, Bob, I think you take the good with the bad with Bob. At this point, he's played some insane hockey over the past couple years, and the mileage that he's racked up is crazy. I just want him to stay healthy, because he can turn it on in the playoffs, and you live and die with how Bob plays. Spencer Knight, I just like to see a little more consistency. He's had some brilliant games, and he's had some stinkers. which that's the growing pains of a young goalie, and that's why you have him in the backup role right now. And I think as Panther fans, we got to accept that. He's not going to be perfect, and that's fine. Developmentally, he's okay. The talent is there. Just let him. You take the highs with the lows, and let him find his consistency, because that's the last thing to come with goalies, is that leveling out of not getting too high or low, and then you very even keel, and that's what Bob has shown the past couple of years. So that's my goalie resolutions. Defense is very simple. My resolutions on defense: stop giving up the odd man rushes.
Yeah.
That's my defense resolution. They'll play a structured game. They'll play smart hockey. They'll jump into the rush offensively, and then we'll just see like some complete, just unexpected total breakdown that ends up in a breakaway the other way. Fewer odd man rushes is my resolution for defense. The forward group, Carter Verhaeghe, you said it. Starting to get a little concerned, given his play lately and just the entire season, and then knowing that his big contract extension is about to kick in. But you also probably assume that has something to do with it, knowing that he got paid and the pressure of living up to the contract you just signed. Every player will deal with that when they get paid, whether they show it or not. I'm not concerned about him bouncing back this year. Statistically, it's not going to, unless he goes on a crazy pace in the second half of the year, it's not going to look as good statistically as what we're used to. But if he finds his game by the end of the season, by the playoffs, and he can come through when they need him most, all is forgiven, really. And you feel better about the 8-year commitment they have with him. So that's my resolution for Verhaeghe and the forward group. And then for coaching, just kind of an easy one. And we might be seeing the signs of this already. For Paul Maurice, my resolution for Paul Maurice: play Mackey a little bit more. I'd like to see Mackey get some more minutes. I'd like to see him get some top 9 time. I'd like to see him get some top 6 time. And you never wish for injuries, and we hope everyone stays healthy. But if there is an injury at some point in the top 6, you'd think Mackey would get that look. I hope it doesn't come to that, but I would like to see him get a chance in the top 6, because there's some real offensive potential there. And he's started to pick up his game a little bit, being stronger in board battles, using his lower body. We discussed how he's stopped trying to forecheck by using his upper body and muscling people off. It's just not going to work at his size, and he's used his lower body to win a lot of those board battles, which is a slight tweak in his game that's really made a big impact. But in limited minutes, he keeps contributing. I'd like to see Paul Maurice give him some bigger opportunities in the top 6. And then final resolution just goes for management. I jokingly wanted to say Sam Bennett his resolution should be to take a pay cut, but I would never tell a player to take less than they're worth. That's not my place to say, and he's earned every dollar he gets, whether it's a Panther contract or somewhere else. But my resolution for Bill Zito is to please extend Sam Bennett and extend Jesper Boquist.
Okay.
Boquist for me has been a revelation, and when he got signed, I was excited immediately. The speed to his game, his ability to be kind of a utility player. We see that in baseball. Utility guys, they can play any position. Boquist can play in any role. I tweeted the other night, he is Panther DNA written all over him. Get a deal done with Jesper Boquist. Keep him around. I don't think the AAV would be too high. And I think he's a guy who could really break out in a playoff scenario. And we've seen how guys who have really strong playoffs get paid when they get to free agency. So let's get a deal done with Jesper Boquist before he has the chance to show the whole hockey world what he can do in the playoffs.
But however, he is an RFA. So
he is an RFA under team control.
So that is.
So I'd like to see the Josh Mahura model. You get him signed before you have to get that RFA deal done. So I'm excited about him. Team control is huge for a guy like Jesper Boquist. He's the type of player who can help extend a cup window.
Yeah, and we've seen this every year around the deadline where there is an extension. So the chances of that happening again are likely for this management group that we've seen. So that you mentioned Mackey, so that will give us an opportunity to also discuss more of a role that he's getting on the Panthers, not necessarily top 6, but on the man advantage. And we're going to discuss that along with previewing Thursday night's game between the Panthers and the Canes, all on today's edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. And I love going to live events, whether it's sports, music, theater, or comedy. One of my favorite memories was attending a concert last year. The energy and excitement were unforgettable. Now Gametime has made it easier to get tickets for future events with their new feature, Gametime Picks. The feature filters out the fluff to show you the only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Recently, I was looking for tickets for the upcoming Disturbed concert later this year at Amerant Bank Arena using the Gametime app. With Gametime Picks, I found amazing deals and could even see the view from my seat before buying. The super deal was particularly impressive and offer great seats at unbeatable prices. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON NHL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime. Third and final segment here on this Wednesday, January 1st edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day here on a Wednesday. So the Panthers, they face the Canes, the Carolina Hurricanes tonight on Thursday night, from Amerant Bank Arena, the first of a back-to-back. We still don't know who the starting goaltender is, but a little bit of a change for the Panthers on the power play. They will still be without Niko Mikkola on this one, and Joe Nikacevic, but you spoke about Mackie Samoskevich giving him a little bit more time, so that he is going to get a little bit more power play time for the Panthers, as he was in practice with the first unit. Carter Verhaeghe now down to power play 2. But this gives a little bit of the Panthers a different look there. For although Ekblad is a right-handed shot from the point, it gives better for the passing angles for a Panthers team who is very right side of the offensive zone dependent, based on the man advantage, based on who's there, and also with Tkachuk working down low. But where the Panthers really truly have that advantage there, for if Sam Reinhart and Mackie Samoskevich are battling below the goal line, you have a better shot of having a pass on a in the slot for a player that is a right-handed shot versus and it getting to the far side on the glove side for most goaltenders, with Mackie Samoskevich with the kind of shot and also the hands to use his deception with, while versus having Carter Verhaeghe there. So I think it's a nice little change. And also the Palmieri spoke about how it's time for him to get that. So slowly but surely, as we spoke about the Panthers and trusting them to put players in positions to succeed, it's we might not get the top 6 time for Mackie, but this is one heck of an opportunity right here for him, getting that, being on the top power play with a team that's mostly healthy. We've seen him step up in times where the team has had guys out, but with the team mostly healthy and getting it, huge for the Panthers.
Big opportunity, and there schematically, there's a couple of reasons why this makes a lot of sense. So having the right-handed shot over there, Mackie can shoot the puck. He was kind of billed as more of a playmaker than a goal scorer coming in, which I think you see that with better line mates, he'd have higher assist numbers. He's been playing mostly fourth line, so his assist numbers aren't jumping off the stat sheet at you, but the offense is clearly there. The creative passing and some of his ability as a passer is on display, but he's much farther advanced as a shooter than I expected him to be in his rookie year. So having a one-time threat there is huge. And then from the passing angle perspective, having a lefty in that spot, and it has been Carter Verhaeghe, if you win a board battle or keep a puck in the zone up there on the left side of the point, being a left-handed shot, those passes are coming from a farther distance and it's more likely to get deflected with the sticks in the middle. But if it's a right-handed shot, it's a shorter distance to make that pass. It's a quick snap pass across, and having Barkov, who's left-handed on the opposite side, you've got dual one-timer threats, guys who have the shortest distance tape to tape for passing, and then Ekblad as the righty up top is of course an option. And then the last thing schematically that makes the most sense here is the backdoor play that the Panthers like to use, usually as a second or third option on the power play. Their first option is always the Sam Reinhart bumper play. Second option is usually a point shot, whether it's Barkov or Ekblad. But the third option they like to mix in is the backdoor play, where we see Verhaeghe creep down the wall and end up at the back door of the net and go for the tap in. With Mackey as a right-handed shot, him sneaking down the back door, it's an easier shot, and you don't have to get all the way to the net to connect on it. You can't one-time that as a lefty. It has to be either a tap in or you have to receive the puck and shoot it. As a righty, it can be on and off the tape right away.
Yep.
So that backdoor play could look good, and we have seen Mackey score while on power play one using that backdoor play. I forget who the opponent was. I want to say it was Toronto. I can't remember exactly who he scored that goal on, but they ran a backdoor play at the buzzer to end a period, and he scored off that backdoor off a feed from Matthew Tkachuk while on power play one. So that's another interesting look that they could use again.
I believe it was against Carolina. It
may have been against Carolina.
Yeah, it was in the shutout game. Yes,
it was. Yep,
yeah,
that is correct. So he did score that backdoor play on power play one against Carolina. So.
And also puck protection. If you're battling along the half walls, if you need to just get it up the point, Verhaeghe would have to backhand it, and that's and if you're not using your peripherals, you might not see who's behind if they're looking to tap it out of the zone for the opponent. So it's a lot easier to get it back to the point if you have a right-handed shot there and you now have it on both sides with Barkov on one and Mackey on the other. So that's another benefit for the Cats there. But going into this game, we spoke about the Carolina Hurricanes in this matchup. They've 6-1 since their last matchup between them and the Florida Panthers. The scoring is down for the Carolina Hurricanes. Their season average is 3.4. They're in the month of December, 0.8 goals less. They're getting the goaltending. They're healthy. Remember, the last time these two teams faced in that back-to-back, Spencer Martin started both of the back-to-backs there. So I didn't want to put too much stock in that matchup because these two teams were gonna look vastly different the next time they face. Now it's here. So Pierre Kochetkov, healthy. Freddie Henderson's still hasn't played since late October, which I still believe they're going to find a way to trade for John Gibson. Something tells me for that. But for the Panthers, that this gives them another opportunity to once again suffocate the Hurricanes, who have struggled. And there was a little bit of bad blood during that back-to-back with Matthew Tkachuk and Marty Necas last go round. So that's a little bit of what those home and home back-to-backs can do. And because it's so recent for these two, it's going to make for a fun matchup on Thursday night.
Yeah, it's a matchup that's another one that that has kind of grown into a big rivalry. And they don't see each other as often as Atlantic Division opponents, but this really kind of started with the playoff series. The Panthers swept, and I want to emphasize swept, the Carolina Hurricanes, just in case Rod Brindamore hasn't come to grips with that one yet. But they swept them in that series, and ever since then, it's kind of been bad blood. I remember last year, the game kind of got out of control a little bit physically. Matthew Tkachuk got injured on a hit by Svechnikov, who missed that playoff series, and things boiled over at the end of a game there when Sebastian Aho scored a game winner with a few seconds left. So there's some history. This season, Tkachuk and Necas. Necas has been one of the best players in the league offensively this entire season. Real breakout year for him. Matthew Tkachuk and him don't get along. And then obviously the big center matchups, they love to stick Jordan Staal on Barkov and try to make his life tough the entire game. So it's a lot of familiarity there. Kochetkov plays really well against the Panthers when they match up. So it should be a good game. It should be a playoff feel to it. The Panthers are going to have to bring their A game. And anyone who's a fan of Finland for the Four Nations face-off coming up, this is a game you'll want to watch because it's a lot of Finnish talent. You wish Nico Mikkola was playing. He's a big loss on the blue line for however long he's out. Hopefully just a short time more. He skated today, but it should be fun. I still have a lot of doubts about Carolina's ability to score. When playoff time rolls around, I just don't see anyone on that team that's really going to step up and be the go-to goal scorer in big moments. And there's guys on the team who have the potential to do it, but just very unproven offensively. I still have doubts about their offense, but their defensive structure is second to none. Should be a tight checking game, should be physical, should be fast. Everything that you expect to see in a Panthers versus Hurricanes game. It's become one of the best matchups you can ask for.
Yeah, and just looking at Jake Gensel's stats real quick on someone they let go after they acquired him at the trade deadline last year. He's over a point per game with the Lightning. So, you would have thought that they would have found a way to keep him there. As far as more offensive punch with Natchez, Aho, Seth Jarvis. So and just sometimes that scoring has just gone cold, and we've seen it. We have enough of a sample size to seen it go on for multiple years with this same group. But Jacob, I want to thank you so much once again for joining me on this edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, another successful Winans Wednesday edition of the show. Tell everybody where they can follow you online.
Yep, you can follow me on X at Jacob Winans 8. Definitely do want to wish all the Panthers fans out there a happy New Year, happy holidays, and of course I didn't want to leave the show for us today without just expressing just our condolences and just heartbreaking situation in New Orleans today.
Yep.
We're not a college football podcast, obviously, but that's second to everything when it comes to people's lives. So hearts go out to everyone affected in New Orleans. Just a senseless and tragic event happening there. So just wanted to make sure we mention that before we sign off.
Absolutely. Our thoughts are with the people over there. So Jacob, thank you so much. And I will see you next week, my friend.
Looking forward to it. Thanks.
And if you like what you're hearing, please subscribe to the podcast to be notified every single time the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast jumps into your podcast feed. Don't forget to also subscribe to the other shows on the Locked On NHL network, including Locked On NHL, Locked On Fantasy Hockey, Flip Livingstone and Stu Roden, and Locked On NHL Prospects. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. So I'm Armando Velez with Jacob Winans, and you've been listening to the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day.